By you? No?
Depends how much we
We'll have
decide that
discussion
we're
on
gonna
that.
chat. Okay, Heather is giving me the sign that the recording has started, so with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. It is being recorded, so for anyone that is looking, all of council is here, along with our CAO, Deepak Joshi, and Heather Stanek, our reporter today. And with that, I would ask for a resolution to adopt the agenda.
Resolved, the agenda for the meeting be adopted as circulated with the noted additions of new business 6.6 award for asphalt patching and 6.7 for Manitoba Good Roads awards yards.
Moved by Councillor Spicer, seconded by Councillor Bazarowicz. Anything else that we need to discuss today or needed to add to the agenda or deleted from the agenda? Everybody is good. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. The next item we have is confirmation of the minutes, and we have one set of minutes from our regular meeting of May the 25th. And if I could have the resolution, please.
Resolved, the minutes of May 25th, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any discussions, corrections? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, so that brings us to new and other business, and the first one we have is the fighter ban. Go ahead, Deepak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, that we did seek an approval from council by electronically so that we can lift the fire ban, but this is a final confirmation of that. But I wanted to note a couple of things for council. One is that the province of Manitoba has it under fire restrictions level 1 for a good portion of our municipality in the north, mostly for east of Highway 59, and it does affect our landfill site and our transfer station at Gull Lake as well, which means that the restriction is specifically related with no ATVs or travel out into the back area. But because of that, we have to seek permission for approval for burning, and they have denied for our landfill or at our transfer station to allow for any burning. So we will not be doing any burning until that is lifted. And because of that, what we have to do is we offer barrier, and then as soon as we're allowed to burn again, we will.
Councillor Spicer, did you have a question?
Yeah, just clarification, does that include Grand Marais also? Because I think on the website we're not accepting rentals at
Correct.
Grand Marais.
It does include Grand Marais as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just wanted to check.
Yeah, my question is, are we still accepting the clean burnables at those sites, even though they can't be burned?
We're only accepting until the pile is, until the area that's full, at which point we can't accept anymore. And normally what would happen is they would be burned and then more accepted. So now we can accept, but there would be a tipping fee, and they'd be buried if somebody wanted to still bring burnables.
If the area is full?
Yes.
Okay, if the area is not full, though, it's still accepted as
Still
clean
accepted.
burnables, no charge?
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, with that, I can read the fire ban confirmation.
thank you.
So, whereas confirmation has been received from all 3 fire chiefs that enough rain has been received and the fire ban can be lifted, therefore be it resolved, the fire ban within the Arm of St. Clements be lifted effective immediately.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, second. Councillor Sutherland. Any discussion or further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.2, Prairie Bylaw Enforcement. And I will ask Deepak to go over that one, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This deals with Prairie Bylaw Enforcement and Manitoba Highway Traffic Act. Under the Manitoba Province of Manitoba, they specifically highlighted that they are not allowed to have vehicles that resemble police vehicles. And so with that, the lights that are on those vehicles are not allowed. Prairie Bylaw Enforcement has submitted a report to the province and is also requesting support from the municipalities that they service if they are willing to move forward with a resolution. And they're looking for a letter of support that can be addressed to the MLA, and a copy of which was provided as an example that they put forward.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Councilor Belanger.
My concern with this is it's multifaceted. When general public see red and blue lights, it signifies a law enforcement officer, generally an armed officer. Conservation officers are the third largest armed agency in Manitoba. You have Winnipeg Police and you have RCMP, Brandon City. Red and blue is indicative of that. Orange is indicative of highways, and sometimes just blue is graders or maintenance vehicles. I don't know what color of lights he's suggesting, but with lights and with sirens come intense training, driving training, stopping training, how to stop vehicles, when to stop vehicles, when not to stop vehicles. The sense I'm getting from council and from the RM with regards to our bylaw is that we don't want to move in that direction of buying our new officer a marked car, keeping his uniform low profile, on and on and on. I get where Prudhomme's coming from, and I don't know what color of lights he's suggesting, but when you start talking about lights and sirens, it's not that you can just get them and put them on and say, giddy up, go. It comes with training. It comes with knowing what to do and what not to do. It takes years for that to happen sometimes. So all I'm saying is, I don't know where Mr. Prudhomme is going, and so that's my concern.
Well, I think, if I remember correctly, I think the car that our bylaw enforcement was driving was equipped with lights, and I believe that all of their vehicles are. Now, I'm not sure whether he wants to continue using what they have, or if there's a change. They didn't seem to have any issues before, but now the province is coming down on them saying that they shouldn't be having them, whereas they've had them for a number of years.
Yes.
Their vehicles are equipped with lights.
Right, so, and that, if you remember, years ago was quite extensive dialogue about 10, 15 years ago when a real rift started to be created between RCMP and other armed agencies in Manitoba. If you remember, I forget how many years ago, but at least 10 years ago, when there was a rift on municipal officers stopping vehicles inappropriately, and if you ask Mr. Prudhomme, he'll remember because the conversation was between him and the province. I can't remember the year. I never was in agreement with red and blues on bylaw to begin with. Lights, yes, but again, we've been lucky. And to me, it's just something waiting to happen. If there was a bad guy in front of you and bylaw is stopping them for a minuscule offense, but the person in the review mirror sees red and blue, automatically he thinks law enforcement. If that person had the inclination to do whatever, it just heightens. Yes, you're right, nothing's happened so far, but there was real controversy about that years ago. So,
Oh, I'm not saying that nothing has happened. What I was trying to say is this isn't really changing what they had previously, because they did have lights on vehicles.
and I agree with you, and I didn't agree with that at the time, but
Yeah.
this is something, again, he's requesting. Clearly the province is saying they don't want that.
Right.
Lights, yes. Does it have, and I guess the question to Mr. Prudhomme, does it have to be red and blue, or is he suggesting other types?
Right.
That's my comments.
Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
I think good points are being made here, and I think we could send a letter But I also agree with Rob, Councillor Boulanger, it doesn't need to be a police looking, like, it doesn't need to be red and blue. Pick a color, whatever it is, yellow, hazard. Like, the intent here is to catch the person's attention and stop, right? If there's an issue, and it's an issue under the Highway Traffic Act, then let's send a letter and find the common ground and make it work.
And one more thing, I don't want to hold things up, and this conversation we're having, I'm just stressing my concerns about
Right.
safety. It always has been there. And again, I don't want to over accentuate it, but law enforcement is dangerous work. And you have to, in society, you have to make a clear distinction between who's doing real law enforcement and who's doing bylaw law enforcement. We had great distinction in color of uniforms to signify unarmed officer and armed officer. So this may be too much water under the bridge already in terms of Mr. Prudhomme was just asking for what was there already, I agree. And it may be a moot point me bringing it up because he's probably going to get them anyway. But it's just my concerns of one person, so that's, I don't want to.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Glenn.
As a firefighter, it's always been like that. We're not allowed to have sirens. We must have a red light if we're going to speed or run through stop signs. Yet, if I go to the city of Winnipeg, I get ticketed for having this red light. Even if I'm leaving the city of Winnipeg, I get ticketed for the red light. On the highway, if I'm speeding and I don't have the red light on, I get ticketed. It's just, and sirens are, I don't think they should have blue.
Anybody else comments?
If I could ask for Mr. CEO's.
Sure, yeah, I was gonna
reflection
get there,
on
yeah.
that.
We've looked at this. The first thing is that they did submit the report and they were turned down. And so the province has been pretty steadfast in this. Yes, it was an issue about 10 plus years ago. And when it did occur, one of the big issues was that there wasn't any appropriate legislation that could stop. And since then, the province has gone in and updated the act specifically to restrict. And so that was at the request of law enforcement agencies who were requesting these types of sirens and lights be removed, not only from these types of situations, from park police and various other types of agencies that are out there, commissionaires and so forth. This request is coming forward where they're looking to appeal to the MLA. And they're requesting the support of the municipalities. When we received this, we haven't had a chance to talk to any of the other surrounding municipalities to see if they are, in fact, giving that level of support. And my recommendation would be that if council so wishes, we can go back to the surrounding municipalities, see if there are any, and if they are in support of writing a letter, and then we can bring that back to the next council meeting. But I wanted to bring it onto the agenda just to see where council stood on this.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Rob.
And I like that idea of asking other municipalities what their thoughts are. And you have to understand where I'm, and I don't want to repeat myself, but from where I'm coming from, not everybody has been in the field or has worked in uniform or has been in law enforcement. So when you ask those opinions from other RMs, you may get a legitimate answer, but I'm speaking from somebody who's been in the position, so I'm speaking from a different realm of everybody else. The training that's required, and I think we've been lucky so far that everything's been good, and you just don't want something bad to happen. That's my concern. I want someone to be able to do the job and be able to do it safely. If we have an armed emergency, a tornado, or inclement weather happen in this, we need bylaw there on the highway, flashing lights of any color, as Councillor Spicer said, is sufficient. It's to warn people that you're there, A, is to protect the officer, and that's all that's required. But I really do think that, yeah. And yet, if if I could sit and talk to Mr. Krugholm one-on-one, I'd like that, because I don't want him to think that I'm saying, no, you're not a legitimate agency, you know, to him, it's gonna sound like, oh, well, they're taking your rights away now, but I'll be, you know.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Maybe just to get some clarification in the type of emergency lighting that he's looking to have on the vehicles.
Yeah.
Because there are very good points made here at the table, so.
That's right, yeah, I mean, you know, Rob, I get where you're coming from and I understand all that. If they were, you know, amber lights rather than red and blue or red, that may signal that yes, you have to stop or you're being pulled over, but it's not the RCMP kind of thing. So, you know, that is something maybe we could clarify with Mr. Prudhomme also, whether it's what sort of lighting, what kind of lighting he's going to be using. Go ahead, Dave.
Yes, I agree with Rob, but the color of the lights, like all our RM trucks, the guys who have putting up a stop sign, whatever they're doing, we have that flashing light, so you have to have that. So there's no reason why Prairie Bylaw can't have some sort of lighting, but not the same as
RCMP.
RCMP, so I think it's pretty basic. I would support them in that, you know, it'd be nice to know, like Sandra says, does anybody know what kind of lighting they do have now? It's not,
I think it's red and blue.
I think it
Is
is too. I can't
I-
remember what Tyler's car was like.
you know, safety-wise, you can say our vehicles are equipped in the graders with a flashing light. In the winter, it's blue, because they stand up better in the snow with the graders. But anyway, so there's no reason why they can't have something on their vehicle, but not, that's, to me, would be the answer.
Aren't school buses blue too?
No, I think they're
It's a
clear.
white light.
Yeah,
Clear.
the
The
lights,
top?
white strobe.
Yeah.
Strobe light, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They may change in the wintertime the way that we do with the
I
graders.
think they do, I think they are.
We have to change because of if there's a snowstorm, or if it's snowing hard, the blue light is, you know, that's what I say. I see where Rob's talking completely.
Okay, Councillor Vargas and then Councillor Spicer.
All those pickup trucks for highways or the municipality, they all have to have a special permit to have that light on it. If they don't, it's illegal, because we have a truck where I work, and it has to have a special permit. You get stopped by the police, they'll ask you if you have that permit with you for that strobe on your vehicle. So that is a special license for those folks. I don't know if RM does that or not, or if they just, whatever, but it means a special permit. And don't the bylaw officers, if you're speeding on the highway, they can pull you over and give you a ticket, can't they? They have that right, eh?
I don't think we're at that point yet.
Not the highway, but on our roads they can,
Yeah.
because we passed the bylaw.
So, I mean, then you need I would think you need a red light or something on there if you're pulling somebody over for speeding. Because you could be just some joker fooling around. People have these lights, they could pull them up, throw them on top, and, you know, nobody knows, you know?
And it's
So,
supposed to pull over whenever. it's
Yeah,
right.
exactly. When you see a red light coming, you're supposed to pull to the shoulder,
Stop.
stop, you know? So they do need these lights, these enforcement guys, you know?
Well, I think what we should ask is our CAO get the information that we're looking for and have it brought back to the next meeting, and then we'll make a decision at that time. Is that good with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move on. Our next item, 6.3, Selkirk Biz, a letter from May the 25th, a request for funding, and if you could go through that, please, Deepak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a request from Selkirk Biz as to support the Biz Bucks card program again. And what they're seeking is $750 for the Biz Buck program for this coming year. They've said that, you know, they've talked about the kind of progress they've had and supporting local purchasing and local shopping is what they're trying to promote. And so they're asking for financial support for $750.
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer, and then Councillor Strang.
Why is this on the
I'm in a bad mood because the Jets lost. So, I guess the magic question is do we have businesses in this municipality that accept Biz bucks? And if we don't, then I don't think we should be supporting this.
Sandra and then Rob.
I will tell you, no. They haven't been promoted in our area.
No.
That's the sad part.
No,
And I have brought that to the table there too, that about them branching out and coming into our municipality, but I don't know if they started. Maybe Councillor Boulanger has taken over that, so.
And the last time I
Clarify.
checked, there was only one business in the RM of St. Andrews that accepted them. We had none, so it's mainly in the city of Selkirk. So go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
I mean, they can be used anywhere apparently. You can buy them if you're a St. Clements resident and use them in Selkirk. It's one of these multi-pronged things that we're gonna get from Selkirk Biz, because it's not only this, it's the fair and rodeo, it's all that list of things that they promote that we said that we were, when it came here, we would probably not go with, like the rodeo, the fair, the parade, fireworks. We were gonna start, in terms of our grants, start limiting those things.
Right.
And this is where we were gonna target it, was in that direction. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's tough. I understand where they're coming from. They're trying to promote business. We're all part of that. But, you know, when we have to make hard decisions, we gotta make them.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
I just think it's going to be hard for Councillor Boulanger going back, sitting at the table there, but I guess one of the things that he can promote and say that none of our business, like the businesses have been approached, or like say in Lockport, whatever, I don't know if his business has been approached, but to take biz bucks, but say that's something that he can say right now, we're not going, like, that maybe that'll make them promote us.
Yes, say at this point in time, but it could be considered in the future.
Yeah.
If we get some of our businesses on board, like, I don't know, like last time, as I said, last time we checked, it was just the one person in St. Andrews that was taking them, and nobody on our side at all. And, you know, we have a number of businesses in Lockport, in Grand Marais. I know Grand Marais is only seasonal, but people come to Selkirk, they can buy their biz bucks and spend them in the north rather than everything going into Selkirk. So is that what we wish? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Horvis.
I thought before we had talked about, like in Grand Marais and in Lockport area, kind of introducing our kind of business thing. So that in I think the last time when Deepak was talking about that, he was talking about maybe those guys were going to do promotions in their areas to stimulate some kind of a buck thing or whatever. So maybe that's something Rob could tell them, you know, that it's not we're going against them, it's we're trying to support our local, you know.
Yeah.
It's not everything going on that side, we're trying to support our local businesses or whatever. I mean, that's a fair thing, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah.
And our businesses have to accept them, right? So if someone went to Grand Marais, those stores would have to have bought into the program, or?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how
Neither
that
am I.
works, but they would have to be on board with the program and accept those biz
That's what I'm
bucks.
thinking.
Yeah. Glenn and then Sandra.
We had a long heated discussion here before about supporting the chamber, the business, whatever. Other RMs do not. It's a bias thing with council. We said that we would buy a membership, is that just to show our support?
Well, and I'm not going to disagree, but I think we have to look at each event that they have. Like, I know that, around this table, there's been discussion for a number of years on the fireworks. We've always, and I was one of the ones that always said, well, so many of our residents go, we should support them. Well, I'm kind of changing my way of thinking a little bit. But there are things like if they did have the parade, that is something that I think that we should participate in, because there are a lot of our residents watching it, and it shows that we're being good neighbors with the city of Selkirk. You know, the fireworks is a little bit different because we do have the group in Grand Marais that's been doing fireworks for quite a number of years. And I've been up there a few times and they do an awesome job. So it's kind of, to me, it's on a case-by-case basis, whatever they're putting forward. So go ahead, Rob.
And you know, it's really hard and frustrating as a council. I mean, you don't want to go along that road of true wrongs don't make a right, but it's real challenging and hard when we have municipal neighbors that we see who don't take part in a lot of stuff outside their area. And for us to just say, well, we're going to do what they do, that's not right either. So it's a real challenging challenge for council to try to really, you know, always be the one stretching the olive leaf. And I just want to make that statement that it's unfortunate that we have some neighbors that don't want to take part in the region, and it's unfortunate, that's all I'll say. It's just unfortunate.
Well, and I guess the only thing that I can say is I don't believe it's going to get any better, so go ahead, Dave.
Talking about fireworks, first of all, maybe we should, not this year, I guess, but consider putting some money towards, we used to have fireworks display right here, for East Selkirk. Well, for anybody who wants to.
They were good.
Yes, I don't know why we can't
That was
look
done by
into
the
that
fire
again.
department.
Pardon me?
It was done by the fire department.
Oh, yes, I know. So I think I'd like us maybe to have a discussion about that sometime and putting some money towards our own fireworks, getting back to what we used to. And one other thing,
Go ahead.
the Highland Gathering, now that it's over here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think, we used to support the Highland Gathering in the park. Now that it's here, I don't believe that Selkirk supports us. So it's just a good example of, you know, and they should have, because in the past, we've always put money. So, you know, as far as this BizBox, well, we have to start somewhere. We said we were going to do it, so. But as far as the fireworks, I'd like to have a discussion about that for,
Yeah, I think you have made a note of it to have a discussion at perhaps one of our committee meetings about, you know, when to have them, whatever. Sandra, you had your hand up, did you want to?
I was just going to add to
chat?
Dave's fireworks. The fireworks happen, they shoot them off on our side anyway, so.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Anybody else, any comments?
And we could take that $750 you want to put it in the pot right now.
yeah.
Let's
So-
start it.
Okay, so for right now, we're going to not support the BizBucks program. But I guess we should put it in such a manner that we could support in the future if we can get some of our businesses on board and accepting the BizBucks. Is that, did I understand that correctly?
So you'd like the resolution to reflect that?
I don't know, do we want a resolution or do we just want a nicely worded letter to them?
Nicely worded,
Yeah,
that's
Letter,
fine.
yeah.
Okay. We'll just respond with a letter.
Yeah,
Take the resolution.
thank you. Okay, a waste card reissue, and I think Deepak has some information on that also.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you may recall, we introduced the new fee structure associated with our waste management plan this year. As part of that, they would be going live on August the 1st. And as associated with that, there was also a need for the production and submission of these waste cards for our residents so that they can use those when they're entering our landfill site and our transfer stations. And so the waste cards, we've done some analysis. Now what happened in the past was they were just using business cards and they're just putting a sticky printed label on top of the business cards, and they were, of course, those got destroyed, although you could take a picture of it and use the picture at our landfill sites. We took a look at how we could maybe turn it into a much more better program where we can introduce more of a credit card style. So we looked at two different styles. One was similar to the kind of cards that you get with your Blue Cross, which are those sort of plastic printed cards that you can put in your wallet cards, but somewhat flimsy. Or something like a credit card with a number and a code on there that identifies the individual as an RM resident and that can be scanned. Now, both of those could be scanned. We felt the hard card would be better because there would be probably less of a requirement to replace them, and they wouldn't get destroyed as easily. So the pricing is similar to both in the situation of printing and distribution. One is from the light plastic is from Winnipeg, and the hard plastic is coming from a company out of Quebec. And that's just so that they can, and it saves us a considerable amount of time. We won't have to individually stuff envelopes. We provide them with a list, and then they print it all off, and it's all stuffed and mailed out to our residents. It goes for every property that's a residential property and farmland. And so that was something I was able to verify. I know, I think I mentioned to you before that there would be some properties not receiving it, but it goes to every property that's on our roll numbers. Now, we could look at restricting and then go in and edit the list as necessary if that's what council wishes, or the cards would be sent out. So if one person owns multiple properties, they would receive multiple cards. But in some cases, they may own multiple properties, they have a renter on site that might be using their card, those kinds of scenarios. And so in doing this, what we brought this forward for this council's decision. This would be the image that the cards would have, our St. Clements Waste Facility card with this scanning code, and which would have them tied in with their particular roll number. And so as part of that, what we looked at was the cost, the price is for 8,500 cards is what we're looking at producing. The price for the envelope is 85 cents. So it turns postage is around 110. So we've come to an estimate around $15,000 total for the distribution of these cards.
Wow.
Question?
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer, sorry, I was trying to see something here.
So, it's a significant cost. Why do you, I guess, just to clarify why the reissue? Just because people's cards are wearing out, because they've lost them, because it's been a few years since we've sent out cards. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a few years. Like, are those the big issues here?
It's also for scanning purposes. So
Well,
we're
the
bringing
old
into
ones-
our own software so we can start, so when we're scanning them now, we'll be able to tell how much wastage is occurring. Right now, there's no scanning. They just present
Well, they
their card
scan my card when I go there.
with the roll number on it.
Yeah, my card scans it too, my
Yeah.
barcode, or what do you call it? Big.
Like, it's just a blank card with the code on
That's a
it.
piece of paper.
I think it's just a generic code. I'm not
It is.
sure.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure that code is tied in directly to the roll number. I can
That's-
verify that.
Well, the roll number is right
That's
on
the
the
roll number, yeah.
That is a roll number?
Yeah.
I guess if, you know, I don't know, I get, because they still have to mark down what you're bringing. I guess that's probably not gonna change, but I don't know, I was just wondering what the thought process was.
Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
I understand where the administration is coming from. We had crappy fishing licenses that were paper, and we were always asking for more plastic coated credit card styles. But it would bug us, but that's government as a larger entity than municipal. My issue with this is it is a significant amount of money for something that we're really trying to get out of in terms of transfer stations. We're trying to whittle down our transfer stations to something more manageable. We're in the process of closing 2 of them. I get the ratepayers are asking, and I know what they're saying, it's sickening that car gets damp or wet or bent. So I know where this is going, that the plastic is better, it lasts longer, it's more quality, better quality. I just don't know why we're going to newer, better technology in an area that we're trying to close down 2 of them, transfer stations. That's,
Thank you for that. Anybody else comments?
Oh, I had one more question.
Sure, go
Sorry.
ahead.
So, are you sending out 2 cars per roll number like it was last time, or?
Just
what's
one.
your plan?
Just one per roll.
Okay.
And I guess my comment is, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
But that's okay, not a problem. With them doing all the work, like the printing, the mailing, the whole 9 yards, like, and I realize, I believe it was last year, maybe even the year before, where our tax bills were not even sent out from the office here, they were sent out from Winnipeg. I guess my first thought, couldn't we include them with the tax bills this year? But if they're not done out of our office, then that's kind of useless too, so. Go ahead, Sandra.
Could we not maybe give just to properties that have a residence? I know that might be hard to start picking through them all, but giving to just,
Where they receive their resident homeowners, say?
I don't know, just an idea too. of
Well, and I
bringing
guess,
it down.
I guess when we talked, Deepak and I briefly talked about it the other day when we were going through the agenda, and my first thought on it was, what about a person or a group that has multiple properties? Like, if you have 6 properties, but you only live on 1, and you're farming the rest of them, do you need 6 cards? So, you know, that was the other thing that I kind of was looking at, because we do have people that have multiple properties. We also have one entity that has a number of properties, but they also have a number of homes on their property, so they would have to have one for every homeowner rather than one. Councillor Boulanger?
Like Broadway or Berkeley.
Oh,
I'll just follow it up by saying, you know, and we're looking, and again, I'm all for new technology and trying to get things better, but it's so many things we're trying to do here. We're trying to promote our garbage pickup, our plastic, our roadside pickup. We're trying to get more residents to get their head around why they shouldn't, because it's so cheap and blah, blah, blah. Again, transfer stations are closing, and yet we're adding and bringing in a system that's superior, that's better than what we have. It just seems like we're working on closing transfer stations, we're trying to get people more on pickup, but yet we're bringing in a card that's more expensive and better technology for something that it's a dichotomy. It's kind of, I don't know.
any other Councillor Horvis, and then I'll let you close off, Deepak.
I think Councilor Sutherland.
Oh, Dave, did you want to say something also? Or
No,
you got David, Councillor
Pointed to
Horvis?
the-
Well, I guess, first off, I don't like the $15,000, because that's a lot of money, and it's, like, I could see it if you were taking your truck in there and they weigh your truck, then you could scan it, but they don't even do that. When you pull up there with bags, they ask you how many bags, and they mark it down. They don't scan the bag thing or whatever, or the weight or whatever. If it was doing weight and scanning, it would make sense, but to do it with a hard card, sure, it's nice, but I bet you half these people in the south end, if they're getting garbage pickup, they don't even want these cards. They're not, never gonna use them. And then I guess if we were gonna, if we do this or whatever, maybe 1 year, like Debbie said, maybe we bring it all back here and lick all of those envelopes and.
You don't have to do that, the mailing machine will do that,
Yeah,
but you have
and
to
then
stuff
just-
them.
But stuff them all out of here to save, maybe we can save half of it or something, you know what I mean? It's a lot of money to do with, yeah, do we need that? Do we need that type of of a system.
Well, I can speak.
I'm not, I'm sorry,
That's
I'm not
okay.
against, like Rob said, the technology and that's great, but does it really get us to the next thing? Like if we're gonna close half of these down or do whatever, I mean,
And I guess,
or if we were to do it, why don't we make it so that if you want a card, we have them here, you come here, we punch it in and here's your card. If you want that card, make them come here and get it. Who's gonna spend, we probably save ourselves $8,000 that way, you know?
but I think some of these cards, the ones that you have there, I think the office does do those now if somebody loses it or it gets ruined. Is that correct, Heather? On the cards that we now have? And I guess I can speak for myself. We have garbage pickup or curbside collection. We use our card maybe, I don't know, 3 times a year when we go to the dump or the transfer station. And I guess, you know, it comes back to the services that we're providing, like from here south, the people probably don't use the card perhaps as much as they do in the northern part of the municipality, or I shouldn't say northern, in parts of the municipality where there is no curbside pickup.
One last comment.
Yes, and then we'll turn it over to
Because
Deepak.
I feel bad, and I'm reading this, and I don't want Mr. Administrator, because it's happened to me when I was working too, when I was asked to do something, and I go and do it, and then I bring it to who asked me, and they don't want it, and then I go, well, why was I asked? So I'm just looking at this, and I see, hang on, I see administration was instructed to obtain quotes. Now, I hope poor Mr. CAO isn't gonna say, you asked me, and
And now you're throwing it away.
I don't know who asked, that's my question, who, like,
We're just poking them for the $15,000.
So Deepak's gonna say no comment now?
but it's true, like, if you were asked, then you did this work, and now we're saying, so.
It's too much money.
All valid points. That's why this report was brought forward. We were supposed to look at a new card system. The previous card systems, as I recall, also had a prepay option and so forth. So we wanted to switch everyone over with the new system over with the new cards and to be able to distinguish those with those prepaid cards. This was an option that was looked at to make it easier to speak to specific issues. One, we couldn't send them off with the taxes because what it required is special stuffing, matching roll numbers. That's why you go for a full print. We can still do generic stuffing, even with the tax bills. If you were just to put in a letter or something to talk generally about anything that's a standard, same letter to every account, then that works. In regards to these, wanted to see council's feeling on it because it was an expensive amount. It does have a direct impact onto the revenue being generated and the intent, and that's why it was brought forward. I can take it back, and what we'll do is come back with a proposal to see if we can do all this internally with paper cards.
Yes, sir. Going back to my comments in the meeting, like, are we getting a bunch of complaints about this?
They've had ongoing complaints for, you know, people can't find them, they're tattered, they're hard to scan, you know, the writing's rubbed off, the printing doesn't work, it's various little things that come in. And they stopped producing or shipping out and just doing temporary cards until the new cards were put in place. And so we could certainly go in and just send out a replacement card to everyone. We could take a look at, you know, reducing the numbers that way and as opposed to doing it all through an external provider. We can look at doing it ourselves, and I'll come back with a report on finding that.
Deepak, I just had a thought as I sat down here, and I don't think it's been mentioned here. What about if, how can I explain it? What about if we have them laminated rather than a plastic card?
It's the cost of laminating.
Okay.
It's individual lamination, and you know,
Yeah,
now you're sending it away for someone to laminate, and bringing it back. And that's why the other cards were looked at were the ones like the Blue Cross, because it goes with a letter stating about what this is all about and then you get the 2 cards, like what you get with the Blue Cross, that you can just peel off. And the printing is done, so it's all just printed, like you send out a script with the roll number, and then they just print individual ones, stuff them automatically and send. As opposed to having a generic letter and then doing something else, then trying to match the roll number with the address so that it gets to the right mailing address and all that.
Glenn?
Do we not have a laminating machine here?
We do, it's still an individual process. What you want to do is try to automate that as much as possible if you can look at. That takes up a considerable amount of time.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at
It's
it.
still gonna cost you money,
Yeah.
because somebody has to do it.
Right, but I guess the first thought that I had was you could do like a whole 8.5 by 14 sheet and then cut them, but then you're ruining the lamination if you do it that way.
Understood.
The other thing is you're having to find the amount of, like what happens in lamination, it has to have an edging for it to seal. And that's usually, if you have the card, it's bigger than it doesn't fit in the water properly.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Sutherland, we've been patiently waiting. I wasn't sure if you were relaxing or had a question.
Well, if we did have to go this route, could we not streamline a little bit, as we said before, multiple properties, you would just, you would get 1 card. And all the people that have curbside pickup, why would they need one?
Well,
Could you not eliminate, I mean, they probably got one now, they're old ones, hopefully they do. But
oh, you're
really,
talking about new cards.
yeah,
Yeah.
like why would the households that have curbside even need one?
Right.
And maybe we could streamline it and then get a price on that, I don't know, just a thought.
If they had
Even-
burning brush, they would need one.
Yes.
Recycling,
But the
the
recycling-
oil.
Even if they do, some people still have, it's trying to distinguish who's bought into the program. It's not like you can just do a geographic area and say these are the ones to remove. Some are within the area that are not on curbside pickup. On top of that, there are many people that will not only do that, but that they do other types of recycling and other things that they can over to transfer stations that are not picked up as a regular pickup.
That, I don't know if you really need your card if you're taking brush in, they're not gonna turn you away. Most of them know who the residents are anyway, the regulars, and as far as your oil containers, I've never really turned away, they don't even ask for it. If you take oil there, you cut the,
Yeah, but you have an advantage. They probably know who you are.
oh, could be.
You got a picture on your wall.
Watch this guy.
Okay, so what conclusion did we come to? I'm sorry I stepped away for a minute.
I will go back, Madam Mayor, and then come back with a report for the next council meeting.
Thank you for that. Okay, so moving on, we're at item 6.5 on our agenda, which is a request to waive some penalties. I believe all the information is there. Comments from Mr. Administrator.
This person is asking to cancel penalty charges that were put in place. As has been identified, the only option they had available was to come to council, as we can't waive these types of charges. The request is to waive them. We have confirmed the address was utilized and remains on file. Property that the copy of the policy regarding the penalty cancellation. Mr. Zale has challenged to provide proof that the mail was sent. He's saying he did not receive it. Now, this is one of those situations, I guess, where what you have is the RM sends out these mailings, but is not required to do a level of registration of every mailing that they're sending out. And so usually the onus is on the other way, but in this case, this individual has said, you need to provide proof that you did send out the mail to me. Normally, my response would be, please provide proof that you didn't receive the mail. So it's one of those scenarios that we felt best to bring it forward in front of council.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
So my assumption is that the policy generally says we do not reduce penalties.
Correct. Unless there was a mistake made by the administration, or council wishes to waive that fee.
Thank you.
And I'm looking at the, I guess the decision paper, and that would be the penalty was incurred on the 2020 supplemental taxes?
Correct.
Okay, because it says 2021. Comments around the table. Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
The letter states 2021 because the intent here was that it was for taxes, and then he's saying that the 2021 letter that was received because they were still outstanding amounts.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sutherland and then Councillor Boulanger.
Yeah, like, I'm looking at, I was reading last night, he's asking for 127.78 to be reversed in his letter. I just want to clarify, he's not saying, but in our administrative comments, it's amount of, sorry, I gotta get back to here, $600 and some dollars, but he's asking to only pay, or to knock off 127. I'm just wondering what.
No, I think that's 127 per month for 6 months.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger and then Councillor Spicer.
It would be nice that part of this policy has a subsidiary policy or something in it that when we are sending out these types of things for supplementary taxes or these arrears, that staff make personal note of it, or somehow document that it was mailed. So yes, the onus is on him to provide that he received it, but we should have something here that we can just simply pull out and say, here you go, here's our proof. Our policy says that our staff have to document that they sent it to you. We could just bang there, and it would just make this go away. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, can we or can we not prove that we did send it?
They go by regular mail, so
Right.
it's very hard to prove that we sent it or didn't send it.
So it shouldn't go by regular mail, I'm thinking it should go by signed or registered or
Registered.
something that somebody has to sign for.
There would be costs incurred for doing registered mail.
$7, $8 a shot.
But how often are we sending?
Yeah,
Like,
so
is
often we do
there
that.
tonnities that we're doing?
Quite a few.
Quite a few.
Oh,
Supplemental taxes go up quite a bit.
okay.
Go ahead, Scott, and then I have a question for Heather.
Just a suggestion. In the resident's letter, it says that he got his property assessed in the fall, and then he got a letter on April the 30th. Is there any benefit for us as a municipality to send out a reminder letter at the end of the year for whoever has outstanding taxes?
I think there are some benefits for addressing both yours and Councilor Belange's comments about looking at the policy of what we're doing today and how we move forward to address these types of concerns. The main issue here, I think, is when something gets sent out, whether you record it or not, if the recipient to the other end says, I never received it, what proof other than a registered mail? And that's a fairly significant cost, regardless.
I'm just suggesting that it's cheaper to do a reminder letter.
Yes.
So, I mean, if it did get missed once, then at least you've tried again, and then when you get a letter like this, you can verify the address, and you can say, well, you sent it out on this date, and we get a reminder letter at the end of the year. you didn't get either one? Is that what you're telling me?
Sure. We can certainly look at adding, reviewing the policy and bringing something back.
It's just one suggestion.
And I guess my question is, when a property is liable for tax sale, when we first discover that it is liable, do we send out a courtesy letter from the office here? And does that go by registered mail, or does it just go straight post?
No, that's straight
Straight post.
Straight post,
Yeah,
so
because
that
we send
answers.
out lots of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of figured that, so. But I guess I'm looking at this and I'm having a bit of difficulty, because he says here on April the 30th, 21, a letter was sent to my attention requesting my assistance in the valuation related to my property. At the time, I looked into the matter and was told that I had an outstanding balance of, then he goes on to say the $7,000, as well as I was being charged a monthly penalty dating back to January of 2020. So I guess first of all, when were his added taxes sent out to him? Because me looking at this now, it looks as if he wouldn't have, it would have been in the fall of 2020 that he got his added bill, but it was dated, taxed back to January.
Could it,
Go ahead, Rob.
could it be, because it happened to me, to us, the provincial assessment, when you rebuild or build, or, yeah, more rebuild, it sometimes takes them a while to get to you, because the building permit has to go to them.
Right.
Assessment is so backed up and so few lightly staffed, it took them forever to get to us to say, hey, you guys rebuilt, you're gonna get a supplement, which we did.
Yeah.
But it was many months later. In fact, I knew that was gonna happen, so I actually went and told my assessor, hey, we're done, I want you, and he said, thanks for telling me, nobody usually comes in and tells us. I said, well, I'm telling you because I don't want you to come 8 months later and then have arrears. That's what would have happened,
Right.
is I would have, RM doesn't know,
Yeah.
right? The RM is doing and following your policy, but often, and maybe in this case, maybe it's the assessor didn't get to him quick enough. So that's why he's saying that it was so far back.
Yeah.
But we don't start charging penalty until after a period of time, after the added tax bill goes out.
Correct.
You give
The
them a
tax-
chance to pay,
Yeah.
and then you,
Okay.
Remember, we're looking at June of 2021, is when this request is coming forward. The letter went out to him for his taxes in November of 2020. Now, he was informed in the fall of 2020 by the assessment department that they were doing a review of his taxes. So to say that he wasn't aware that he was going to have to pay taxes, and that didn't receive any letter,
Okay.
yeah, he could have followed up.
Councillor Horvis and then Councillor Strang.
Isn't it on the onus of the person who's, every year we know we have to pay our taxes, so if we don't get our bill, it's not whatever, a squirrel could have come in the mailbox, stole it or something, or somebody steals your mail, or whatever, it's not the municipality's fault if we don't get our tax bill, then we should be phoning here and saying, where's my tax bill, right? Isn't that how it works? I don't know.
correct?
I've had to pay arrears before, and I know what it's like, Sometimes you don't have the money, and you can't do it, so you have to pay the arrears, till you get your money.
Penalty, that's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Maybe in our policy, we should have that charge of the registered letter in there. So it isn't coming out of the RM's pocket, and just have that in there, and it will be charged to the,
Is it that much money?
Tax roll.
I don't know what a registered letter
So
is.
$6, $7, $8 you said.
But even if it's $10, like Heather was saying that they do quite a few of them, like put that back on them.
$10 probably cost you another 10 in the office, I'll put it
At
on,
least.
you know what I mean?
Or 20, well, like, we should have something in the policy then and send it out as a registered letter rather than doing a reminder and,
Yeah, why couldn't we do it that way?
There's circumstances associated with every one of those. So
Yeah.
we'll come back to the policy if we
But
have a
maybe
dialogue. Mainly as an example, you send out a registered letter and that person says, I didn't get the first one, why should I pay for the extra money on the registered letter?
Yeah.
So there are circumstances, it's when somebody's claiming that they didn't receive something, that's what you're dealing with as an ongoing basis. Everybody knows that, in October, the RM sends out, or October, the taxes are due in the RM. None of that had changed.
I remember years
Like your
when
credit
the
card.
mail was on strike, we had to come here to pick up our taxes, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference then?
Well, and it's just like your credit card bill. If you put charges on,
You get
they
charged
don't,
the
you get
interest.
charged whether or not you make a payment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay, so what is the wish? I'm hearing that there will be no reimbursement or no cancellation of penalties. Is that what I'm hearing around the table?
I think so.
Okay. So we will forward a letter to Mr. Zale saying that council,
That's denied their request.
thank you. 6.6.
And I apologize to council that this was a late addition. It came in late yesterday, and I had full intentions of trying to get it on to the late agenda, but I had a doctor's appointment, couldn't finish it up. But what we have here is the decision paper associated with our yearly asphalt patching program. Tenders had gone out. We had received 4 bidders. The lowest bidder, of course, is Maple Leaf Construction. This includes also doing cut and repairs as well. Sometimes where there's asphalt, where we had to cut to do some work, and then you have to come in and do the full repair. And for this year, there are none of those. And so at one, that's why for excavated overlay, there's a price of $0 there. The price per ton for a regular overlay is $149, which is the lowest bid received from Maple Leaf Construction. But when, of course, it's a unit price scenario, and it depends on the work. And so the intent of administration would be to stay within budget, which is at $45,147.
Wow, what a variance in price.
Yeah,
And a big company like Maple Leaf, eh?
that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Any questions or comments? I will ask administration or our CAO to please read the resolution then.
Be it resolved that council accept the recommendation of Public Works Manager authorizing the CAO to award the asphalt patching to Maple Leaf Construction for $149 per ton, plus applicable taxes for asphalt overlays estimated at $45,147, plus GST, to complete the asphalt patching within the allotted budget.
Moved by Councillor Bazarowicz, second Councillor Horbis. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.7, and we did have this one on our agenda last time, and we're supposed to put our thinking caps on to see if we could come up with some yards or areas that we could submit for the Manitoba Good Roads. And I believe, if I remember correctly, did Public Works have some roads that they wanted to enter into a competition this year?
They were to submit some roads. We're going to go back to Public Works. The reason I brought it up on the agenda for today, and the reason it was added on as last minute, is that there's a deadline for submission of these, and that will be before our next council meeting. So what I'm suggesting is that I want to share with you at least the 2 that have been put forward on the yard site, and then we'll come back with a Public Works, which I will share with you electronically before the submission date, but I wanted to at least allow for council to have some discussion on this, which is there are 2 properties that have been identified, and we're waiting for a reply on the features of one of those, which is Mr. Thorne and on Nanton, and another one is Mr. of Mr. and Mrs. Williams on Henderson Highway. We did receive comments from Mr. and Mrs. Williams, which will be put into as part of the yard site, but we haven't received one from Mr. Thornton.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor
I
Sutherland.
did, their last meeting, George and Gloria Walker, also
Okay.
in Harvard. And I actually saw her in Walmart yesterday, just to make sure that she was okay with it. I said, she said, oh yeah, so.
Okay, and which subdivision are they in? I know where they are, I just can't remember the.
Folsom Harbor.
Folsom Harbor. Okay,
Okay, we will approach them. If there's any others you'd like to suggest, and then I'll let you know about the Public Works Road. We're anticipating, I think at the last council meeting, we thought church could be sent this year.
okay, Councillor Babinovich.
They did a really nice job on Dunning from Henderson tracks. That was all they should have been.
Okay, anybody else have any yard sites that they might be interested in submitting? Like, I know we had it on our last agenda, like all the categories. Now, these two that were generated, those were from what was put on the website, I'm gathering? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was on our website, but if you're interested in entering your property, just let the office know. So go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
For Public Works, the piece we did on Henderson Highway here, and
Yeah.
Charlie's, like, which turned out very nice. Could that be submitted, or? No?
Well, no,
Could I
it
look
it could be, but I don't have the list of the categories, but I guess I could go back to the last agenda.
Oh, past range, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did a nice job of the whole,
Really nice,
Yeah, there is a new build road category or something, if I
Or
remember.
rebuilt.
Rebuilt,
Okay, let me go back to the last meeting's agenda, because I think the whole,
or what Glenn was talking about there too. looking at-
listing was there of what the categories were.
Okay,
My iPad is thinking. Okay, oh, here we go. No, the information as to all the categories is not here either. So, I will see if I can find it before the end of the meeting, and maybe we could just look at some of the categories, because I think there's like a residential, and then there's a farm, because I remember a few years ago, Mrs. Lefko's was
that's right.
one, hers, and the farm area, you know, there are the different categories. And I know, because I sit on that board, we haven't met for an awful long time, and I know that the last couple of years that we've had the competition, there have been some categories where there have been no entries, and it's kind of like, you know, there should be entries in every category, and when we're looking at the whole province or all the municipalities that belong to Good Roads, you would think that there would be someone in each or something, or some property in each category or road or whatever. So I will try and find that, and maybe we can have a discussion about it, because as our CAO said, there is a deadline, so. Okay, so if we go back to our today's agenda, I think we're down to the accounts.
Yes, close list of accounts.
Thank you. Can I have the resolution, please?
Resolved, council approved the June 8th, 2021 list of accounts, excuse me, check number excuse me, 21000999 to 21001170 in the amount of $548,249.09 for payment.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Forgus, second Councillor Strang. Any discussion, questions, comments on the accounts this time around? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, that is carried. Okay, 7.2, we have grants. We have one grant from Gull Lake Basin Management Board, and I believe that our CAO will comment on that one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This relates with the Gull Lake Basin Management Board. This was the request for grant for 2020 and 2021, where they hadn't received the grants because the grant application is not filled in, as well as the information provided wasn't available for their financial records. That information has been provided and we'll be bringing forward as we work with them to develop a mechanism for reporting in a much more effective manner and in support of their capacity working with us. We're bringing forward their grants for 2020 and 2021. They were budgeted for $2,000, and what we're recommending is to authorize the grants for $2,000.
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Okay, so there obviously needs to be some dialogue here, because if they're assuming that they're getting more than $2,000, that should be relayed to them.
Correct, and that's part of the dialogue that I'm working with them right now. Once they've submitted their expenses, to be clear as to what expenses are related with which grants. Much of their request was sort of bundled together between the grant for the aerator as well as the grants for the management of the zebra mussel program.
Well,
And expenses.
And just to further that, like, it's saying here that they have aerator expenses of $5,371.63 that they want paid for, plus a grant of $2,000 and a grant of $2,000. My thought is there does need to be some clarification done here, because my assumption is the $2,000 grant is to pay for their expenses, not over and above what their expenses are.
Correct. Well, the grant is,
So I don't think giving them $9,300 is correct. I think it should probably be closer to, if council agrees with this, $5,371.63.
That was their expenses.
That's what the expenses were.
the 2021 expenses haven't come through completely. As their expenses to date.
I guess they have to, once again, there has to be a level of dialogue here of what is what,
Exactly.
and, you know, some backup provided.
Okay. If you wish, I can go back and get the details and then adjust the request as a part of the grant.
Anybody else, any comments or anything? But I think the annual operating grant, we've been giving them that for a number of years, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And that is something that we would give them on a yearly basis.
That's for the aerator.
That's the aerator operating annual grant.
Yeah.
That's all.
But fundamentally, it's an operating grant, which means that it should be for the expenses, correct?
That's right, it's
It's
for
not over and
Oh,
above.
okay, yes, I see what you're saying.
That's, unless I'm wrong, that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, if it only costs you $50 to do it, you're not gonna get $2,000.
know we have been giving 2,000.
But it's been costing them that, hasn't it? They've been able to put that, except for this.
And I don't know why in 2020 we lowered the grant, because it used to be 5,000 according to this. Go ahead, Sandra.
I was just gonna ask that, but it says here they assume the 5,000 annually, but are we covering the actual operating expense? Because it looks like it's over that amount, or are we just giving them 5,000 annually? Or, and then are we giving them 2,000 on top of that? Like, that's, or was that we knocked it down instead of the 5,000?
Well, there should be something in the records here. When the Gull Lake Basin Management Board was established, because it was established by council. The Gull Lake Ratepayers Association is a totally different entity, but there should be something on the Gull Lake Basin Management Board, and there may be something there, whether, I don't know if it was an agreement, or whether it was by bylaw, or whether it was like a resolution of council that would show something. Go ahead, Rob.
And Shannon and I looked for that 2 years ago, non-existent. I specifically, her and I were trying, because there was a real controversy with some ratepayers that were adamant that we originally did not support or pay for the aerator, and I said, excuse me, this RM
We
paid
did.
for it, did it, took the initiative to do it.
$10,000.
Exactly, and he said, no, so-and-so said you guys did it, I'm going to prove it to you. So Shannon and I, for weeks, she tried to search and find the history on that, and we could not find it.
Well, I guess
It happened, but
I guess the problem is, if it's in a minute book from 15 years ago, you're not gonna find it here. You gotta look at those minute books.
Yeah.
That's, because I don't believe that all the minutes have been scanned into the computer, that you could look at something from, 19, or,
81.
that's right.
It
Yeah.
might be in archives and that, they do, we never know.
Well, no, I think the minute books are still all here, so,
Oh,
or they should be, and so, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if it was 2 years ago or if it was 10 or 15 years ago, but I know we did an investigation because somebody came forward from Gull Lake and said that we gave customers nothing, ever. And it was something like 40 grand we turned down. Does that sound, I don't know if anybody's.
Well, I know that the figure of 10 to 15,000 sticks in my mind is, because I know that that aerator had to be replaced once already.
Yeah, we've done it.
Yeah, and we've done it. So,
I
I
think we paid
mean,
for it up front too. And then,
so,
Wouldn't this be part, but going forward, isn't this part of asset management? Is that ours? Is that RM's, now?
It's ours and Alexander, I think, are part of it, the aerator.
maybe they have a record.
We could certainly look at that. The situation was that this year, as part of the budget process, we identified $2,000 as part of the support for this program. And part of that was because we looked at it, and there wasn't much of a request coming in from the previous year, mainly because they weren't providing the information. We can go back and do a full report on the Gull Lake Basin Management situation, because I have to work with them on this entire zebra mussel program. The reason I brought this forward today was there's been some urgency on their part to get these grants, because they have expenses from last year, and what they've been using is grants that they received for staffing that are being used to pay for those bills until such time. And it came down to the issue that the volunteer group that works there weren't appropriately versed in providing financial records and financial information. Since then, we've supplied them a spreadsheet identifying how expenses and charges and revenue should be accounted for as part of it and then reported to the RM, because they do all their management, and they just send in the requests. That information was only just received, that was sent out a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, I think. We received it just yesterday, I think, from their volunteer who's been working on it, who admittedly says I'm not an accountant. So we've been trying to help to get that resolved. So I was trying to get ahead of this request because of their shortfall that they feel. We can put a delay on this and come back with a full report as to what's happened and the result of our negotiations with Gull Lake based on our last discussions of council on the Zebra Bus program.
End of the day, though, they're gonna need the money, aren't they?
Yes, they will.
So, I mean, if it would help them going forward, maybe we should.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so you have $5,300 worth of bills for the last 2 years so far
That's my understanding, yes.
in this office with a request.
That
So
we're
we know,
verifying.
we know that they have spent that money. I'd be okay with giving them the $4,000 for the 2 years because we already have. And anything over than that, they have to justify.
Did we not, so their aerator money grant was not given out in 2020?
No, because they didn't give us any paperwork.
Okay, that's,
Or fill out the grant application, now that's been clarified. And I think there was some assumptions that, that it was just an annual grant and it was just being received, so it's not that this is
yeah,
a
I get it.
direct criticism of anybody, but just it wasn't done.
And let's not hold them up or, make any more.
Like, if you're comfortable with what you've got at this point, I think we could pay the $4,000 and then work out the rest with the whole
We should.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would agree with that too, like, we should give them some money and then kind of a notation that we'll try and work toward.
Gaining clarification.
Right.
Cleaning it up.
And they know now that they have to send in their financials every year.
See, and I don't
So this
know,
problem again.
see, and I don't know where that ever changed, because they used to send
Yeah.
in their financials.
Could be new people.
One volunteer.
No, well,
needs-
I mean,
Same
Jill's been
volunteers
there
for
for a long time, yeah, they've been there for a long time on the management board.
Okay,
Okay, so do we have a resolution for the 4,000, or are we just going?
Just trying to reload my screen. but
Yeah, I had
lost
something
the
happen to
connection.
mine too.
Yeah, it looks like I'm frozen.
All of us. I got in, I was frozen, but I went out, you got back in, yeah.
Into the network security.
Well, I would have thought once you entered that once, that it would automatically be there, or is that?
Follow your criminal record. Yeah.
You've been on the wrong sites and when you're up to the arm and stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, I can't open up.
I'm still disconnected. I don't know if we've
I'm
lost
trying
our.
to, I'm trying to get on, to see if the camera,
The cameras are slow.
Well, I ended up, I went to the next item on the agenda, which is the overview of the grants, and I opened that document up.
I think that's coming from what was already loaded,
yeah.
so it's not refreshing. That's what's happening.
My agenda's up, but you can't open it.
Oh.
I'm still waiting for your guy there, Heather, to call me, your computer guy to help me get into my email thing.
still haven't heard.
Probably Scott, I think Scott's
Yeah,
doing a
Scott.
lot of the work here.
Justin was pretty good, he was quick, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was Scott's working for Justin,
Oh,
yeah.
No one heard me.
can we not just X out and then try to log back in? That might work. Okay.
I'm not moving, I got the grant overview up here, so.
You're the only one.
I got it.
Oh, you got it too?
Looks like it's an all-net issue.
All right.
Yeah. I can log, I can go on other sites.
This is so,
I can go onto our website.
Yeah, I went right out and tried going back in and no,
You know, all-net is just disconnected.
it's fake.
Nope, I just got in, yeah.
Into
Because I
all
kept
that.
on, yeah, because I just got service error before.
Yeah, there we go. Go back in.
Okay,
Very slow.
like squirrels.
Squirrels are fast.
Yeah, they are.
More like hamsters.
Come on, baby. Oh, there we go.
My wheel is still turning. Hamsters a little.
Back in now. Good, cool, Jared. What did you do?
yeah,
During, well, just before.
he didn't do anything for the
That's
last
not,
2
it was
weeks.
so darn hot, I was trying to get so much yard work done, I said, Steve, I'm dead.
So,
Well,
who's
June
was
the
full?
first, June the first, when we go on, so they call me.
It's thinking.
Yeah, I don't have a big one this time either.
Everything was so behind, I got part of a garden, but not everything, but it's,
Garden,
yeah, because the weather was so cold and iffy in May and
I got a boat. I still got my transplants.
I got all my garden and my transplants and everything are in the garden. My flowers are all on my deck.
Are they not doing any flowers out front here for us?
I thought about that the other day.
you think,
Yeah, they're supposed to be. It's part of our contract.
And even the two, there's two, I noticed two urns by the
stay home for that inside.
little library, by the walking path there, and there's nothing in those eyes.
Very much. Water,
The camera sees
which is weird because you.
Ashes of past conquerors.
Yeah.
Okay, Heather says that we are still
the
being.
camera's on, because I just checked it.
Okay, so I can read off the resolution, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go right ahead if you have it there.
Resolved, the council approved the following 2021 requested grant. Gull Lake Basin Management Aerator Operating Grant for 2021, $2,000. Gull Lake Basin Management Aerator Operating Grant 2020 for $2,000.
Moved by Councillor Horvath, second by Councillor Boulanger. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And you're working on the rest of it, so if there is any other funds to be forwarded, that will come back to us once you have everything sorted out.
Correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a grants overview, and I think we have a spreadsheet there with all our grants. Very hard to see, I gotta say.
My computer is very slow, Madam Mayor.
That's okay.
There we go. And I'll zoom out to allow you to see. And so what it is, just an overview of the budget that's been established for 2021 and what are our actuals here to date as to some of the expenses associated with it. And so what I'll do is I'll zoom out a little bit more.
And I guess we got the 19, or 2019 figures in there just for comparison purposes.
Correct that there. Because 2020 was an unusual year due to COVID, so we
Right.
thought 2029 or 2019 would be a better gauge as to what happened in the previous year. And so when we take a look at that, where our current year to date is very close to what the budgeted amount is, similar to what it was last year. And that's for policy number 410, which was memberships for municipalities, or municipal memberships. The next is, of course, our policy number 411, which is donations. And so related with policy 411 is there are very little, but the maximum budget amount on that is $2,000. And so those were specific donation requests. As you can see, we said that we would deal with those on an as request basis. And to date, we haven't received any of those. The other is our annual activity sponsorship grants. And these are the grants that were regarding regular requests. And again, we've had many of these in the past, but in 2020 and 2021, we haven't received much yet. And then what we get into is we've had a $300 request for the annual grant for the awards night, which council did award, for policy number 413, which is the recreation service providers. The budget has been at $69,000. In 2020 or 2019, we were very close to that budget. 2020, we were very little because most of the community areas weren't in need of, because they were closed most of the year. We anticipate this to be a little bit less, again, just similar to what happened last year. And unless COVID opens up those recreation centers. Next is the recreation project grants, and you'll see 3 of them that are carried forward from last year to this year, which are the ones highlighted in yellow. And then what we have is no requests right now under there. And as the Gull Lake Ratepayers Association, that's the under review. And so the other is the Gull Lake Aerator. That was 2,000. What we have is a zebra mussel program, which is an LID. And then we have some of the other grants that have been listed there. Again, we're at fairly minimal amounts at this point for some of the requests we're processing. So there's our balance as the total grants. We have 415,000. Some of those are, of course, directly out of operating funds. And that's why it's different than what was shown in the budget program. And then 27,000 is what's been expended today.
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Going back to policy 410, we're showing 2 is under review there. So our membership went from $500 to $2,500, and that's an actual this year.
That's a very good question. I'll have to take a look at that one. I think that might be a request that we've received from them, mainly associated to the ARM dinner.
It just caught my eye.
That's the one that caught my eye too. Councillor Bazarowicz, can you shed any light on that one? You sit on that board.
Nothing right now, just haven't heard anything. We're still talking about maybe paying.
No, I'm talking about the fees. Like, have you had any meetings where they said the
Nothing.
membership fees will be increased for this year?
Don't say, I mean, hello.
George?
Oh, oh,
Seminoles.
Absolutely not.
and I don't know why AMM would be under review, like, both for the same amount, so I'm not quite sure.
I think the under review is that finance is under review of the bills. It's not the policy or the decision to support.
We got the big one there with FCM, like, with the charges, you know, it's,
I know, I guess I'm really not supporting that the 60,000, the funded by reserve and funded by special levy should be included as part of the grants.
They are not part of the grants, it's part of the budget process. This was more for managing them, and we've talked about it in the past, and as part of the budget process, that they were still in the accounts to manage, to review, but it wasn't necessarily shown as part of our financial plan as direct grants.
But if someone were to look at this and see this $415,000 under grants, they go, what the hell is going on with the RA? Because it does say total of all grants.
Sure, Madam Mayor, we can take a look at it if that's what council wishes.
I don't know, I just think it's odd. Because the
But-
special service levy is not part of the grants.
That I can agree with, but I mean, if it's funded by reserve, it's still a grant and it's still coming from taxpayers. It's still coming out of the taxes.
Yeah, I guess that part of it is correct, but those were all special
Yeah,
projects that they were doing.
That's,
Yeah,
There-
but
it's-
it's still a grant.
Yeah, it's still a grant, it's not a yearly grant though.
No,
Those grants are identified as under policy number 414, which is recreation projects.
Does it exceed the grant amount though, that you budgeted for? Within a year?
The budget was $80,000, which included the 60,000 carryover from last year and the 20,000 that's normally as part
they
of the
haven't
budget.
got it yet because they haven't completed the project.
And the 20,000 is part of the normal budget, as part of the grant programs. So what we have is 230,500 is funded by the VLT grant monies. Some are funded through general taxation, which were some of these ones that were listed earlier as well, like the memberships. And then what we have is the special levy and then funded through reserves.
Okay, are there any other questions? Because I don't believe there was anything to do with this one, it was for information only. Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
The picnic shelter, is that what we allotted, 20,000? I thought it was 10. No,
no, it's 20, I think.
20? Yeah.
And because I think the province gave us some money too, I can't remember what the province gave them.
but I thought that wasn't cash, it was in kind, it was not. We're gonna take up some gravel over it.
Cash and kind, I
Both.
think it was.
Yes.
Okay, so that was 10.
Go ahead,
What was it?
Councillor Strang, then Councillor Boulanger.
Is that still going ahead, or, because it's been like quite a while already.
Haven't
that
really
we-
heard,
Yeah, they threatened to backwash.
so.
That's
I don't
their own problem.
Have you heard anything more, Mr. CAO, whether they're going ahead with that project? Because I know
I'm
they,
under the impression they are still going ahead with the project with it.
yeah, because I know they got some provincial funding for that too, and I think that, you know, if they don't go ahead with it, then they have to give that money back, and that would be a shame.
And is there a timeline that when we approve some of these, that they drag on for, like, is there a timeline for them, for us?
Well, I think the provincial money has to be used within a certain timeline, but, yeah, so our CAO is saying yes, so I would assume that our money would be used at, if it's, you know, 24 months, then our money should be used at the same time. But we won't give them any money until they submit something to us, correct?
Correct.
Councillor Boulanger?
I know what you're saying about the optics, about the 415,
Yeah.
but I think as long as all of us, if any of us are ever asked about that, then we would have an answer. I would simply just say a portion of that is taken through a special tax levy and sort of explain it that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it just
I
kind
know
of
what you're
like
saying.
jumped out at me, so. Okay, if there's nothing else on the grants overview, we'll move on to bylaws, which we have none today. Communication for information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In communication for information, the one I wanted to draw your attention to is the Red River. Well, of course, there's the public hearing that's in the Arma Alexander, but the cloud permit from Red River Planning. They've gone ahead with the cloud permit, and so now people are able to go apply for permits online.
So it's live.
It is live, and I did, just to kind of give a little more information, I did get a note from Jennifer yesterday that they went live. They did have an application from West St. Paul, and it was done totally online, and everything went very smoothly, so. And she also had a session prior to going live with about 30 different developers, builders, whatever, and everyone was very impressed with the system, so hopefully it will be a little bit easier for people getting their permits. Go ahead, Rob.
If you could, and it may happen, can you let Jennifer know that when she gets those accolades from specific companies, construction companies, builders, that they do her a favor, or she comes to them and say, can you do me a favor and give me a paragraph of your accolades? Because they need to be put somewhere, so we can simply say, look.
Right. Well, I think what sometimes happens is that she reports in her monthly report, all sorts of things, and we also have a compliment and, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for?
Complaint.
That's the word, complaint and
Beefs and
compliment
bouquets.
reporting on our agendas
Beefs and
every
bouquets.
meeting. Yeah, it's almost like beefs and bouquets, but I know that she has had that on there now, whether it's accessible, because we deal with those in camera. So, I mean, in my mind, I wouldn't mind having the compliments so that everybody can see them.
Would that not be something you can ask, can they put that on their website? Like the RRPD website, where it'd be an area you click that says, I don't know what you call it, not compliments, but
Leave some bouquets.
Positive feedback.
positive feedback, there you go, so that someone can click on it.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about it. We have a meeting next week, so I'll be getting together with Jennifer on Thursday, so,
Well, there's proof then, right?
Yeah.
It's right there in writing.
yeah.
Actually, sorry, I'm just on the site.
That's
There is-
okay.
There is a thing right on here of, you go on the cloud permit and cloud permit support. So there is a thing on there where if you're having problems with it too, that they're right on there with you, and they go through all the steps and that, so yeah, something like that would be.
Interesting.
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead.
In addition to this, it should be noted that our municipality was chosen for the lot grade permits, as the lot grade permits are now, we did the testing with them, and so they used our processes in the approval process, and now they're also online. And so the advantage of this cloud permit program is also others can view the information online. So there will be, and it can add in additional approval processes, so something can trigger other work. So there will be some ongoing advancement of automated procedures as we move forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else on cloud permit and RRPD? Okay, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I guess I did submit the WMR monthly report for April, and I also submitted, that was 9.8.1, and 9.8.2 was RRPD, the Executive Director's monthly report for April. So I'm gonna try and get those in every month. I know it's a little bit behind, but at least we do have them.
Madam Mayor, one other item that I wanted to draw to your
Sure.
attention is the letter for the proposed telecommunications tower. So Bell MTS is putting up a tower by the Balsam Bay area. It's not on RM land, but it'll go through all the regular approval processes, but they've selected a site, so there'll be better coverage in that area as we move forward.
Okay,
So
thank
we're
you.
working with them, but they find any RM property for the teams.
Oh geez, that looks like it's almost sitting right on the road.
It's on 101 or off 101 there.
Looks that way, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on that's pretty much it for our info correspondence. So now, if you would like, we can go into council reports. And I'm going to start with Councillor Sutherland today.
Okay. June 1st is our committee of the whole meeting. And yesterday, June 7th, they had a June Eastern District meeting on Zoom. Derek Johnson, the Minister of Municipal Relations, just announced, well, that's an announcement that $61 million in basket funding, which we know about. There's also some talk, I don't know if anybody was, something about water and sewer infrastructure. Is that something we already made any applications for grants in that respect? I would just,
Deepak can probably answer that one, whether this is new funding or is this the funding that we've applied for through the province and Manitoba Water Services Board?
I think they're talking about they were talking about the, how that was the,
Extra 50 million.
yes, that's just the standard.
so it doesn't help us in any way?
We've applied for every grant application.
Yeah, okay, all right, just, and then the 25 million for youth employment, green teams. That wouldn't apply to, for our green, it's not really a green, no, at the Gull Lake, for the zebra mussel program, that wouldn't apply for. And there's a new Corporation Rural Manitoba Economic Development, RMED it's called. It's going to be starting up in September. Margot Cathcart is the CEO. There's something new that I found quite interesting. They did mention it. It's not going to, like with our economic development officer, it's not as if they're going to take over anything from us, you know, as far as what we're doing, but it's something new. Found it interesting.
Dinner for that, I think.
I guess. A&M Trading Company, there's a new name, Canoe. I had a question on, like, our rebates. You know, I know we're a member of the trading company. Where do our rebates go at the end of the year when we get them? Like, say there's a purchase of a grader, does it go back into the,
General pot?
or back to the,
We should call that a basket.
well, is that where it goes, back into general? It wouldn't go into Public Works budget?
So it goes in the big,
It goes in the
Goes
big
back
basket.
to, no,
The big basket, which is then reviewed by council at the end of the year.
okay. Another question that, when they were talking about that, I was just like, I know we do, are we a member with the Piston Ring? I didn't see them in there. I might have missed it. Because we do lots of dealings with Piston Ring. Are they part of the,
I don't
I
know.
I don't know if we can look into that, or because we buy a lot from Piston Ring. So I'm just curious as to whether we're,
Might be, but I don't know.
if not, we should, I don't know, just a question. And yeah, that's about it for my questions, so that meeting I thought went pretty well. And I think it was maybe Scott that,
Yeah, it was,
Had a
it was
question?
Scott.
I
I see right away.
right, about ISA. Apparently the stars all haven't lined up yet.
I think we are not getting ISIN. I think it was made very clear after, I didn't think it was our Scott, I thought it was some other Scott.
Oh, I thought it was, I just,
But there's no last name they're going
anybody?
But there's a Scott, but no last
And what they
name.
said was anybody that's receiving ISEP funding would have received a letter back.
I think we're out.
Yes, so I think we did receive it.
Okay,
And
I
that's
didn't,
really unfortunate,
really?
because they could at least have the courtesy
Yeah.
to say that your application is not been approved. But
Well, I think they will eventually. The intent here is I think they've given up under the requirement to the municipalities who are receiving ISEP funding have been told, but they're required not to disclose until there's a formal announcement. So they
It's
can't
only
tell
been
anybody
2
who hasn't
years.
qualified until the formal announcement of who has qualified.
Anybody could have been more worthy, it was us.
couldn't have made it more clear, I didn't know that, that's
Yep.
kind of, okay.
I left the answer with, no, we're not getting it, or we would have been contacted.
Well, that's how I took it
Okay.
too, once that was said, but it's still,
Guess I had my hopes up.
well, it was.
I will try to double check, it. They did say check with the infrastructure, Toronto Infrastructure Secretariat, and I will double check that in case it went to the previous CAO's email or something.
Well,
I'm
and
thinking
it-
it got lost in the mail.
I'm just hoping it got lost in the mail, correct?
Well, I think the other thing is that we have to kind of look at what we had originally applied for, and money is received under different programs, and if we got money for something under a different program, we probably won't get the ISEP, the way I'm looking at it. So,
Sure, that's.
and that's it for you today? Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Stein?
June 1st, Committee of Whole. June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I did little bits and pieces of FCM. When I left here, a lot of stuff is still not on there, but there's actually, after you go in there and read more of it, there's some good topics there. So they said that they're going to be out the recordings anywhere from 4 days to a week later. So if anybody has the code, like go on and watch some of the things.
And they'll be on there for a month is what the
Yes,
way I
right,
took
yes,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
So I did watch Aaron O'Toole and Jagmeet Singh. Both of their speeches were, they have very much in common. Big thing, affordable housing, bringing into your municipality. They said with COVID, Canada is the one place that the prices of homes and with people selling their homes have gone up 30 to 50% on some homes. So, and they said our country has gone, that it's making for the younger people, that's unattainable to have a house. So both of them agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Springfield, their last meeting, they denied the application for the affordable housing, and then they interviewed Tiffany, and she said, maybe in 4 or 5 years.
What kind of application, or they, like somebody was doing a
Yeah.
conditional use or something?
Yeah. Got denied.
Yeah, that was one of the
That was
things.
one I sent you guys about a month ago. Maybe front page.
Go ahead, Sandra.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Rural Canada is the glue to every province. They said everybody's moving out of the cities, getting out of the hustle and bustle, everybody's seeing how important family is. So they said all the outside of the big cities, that they should be paying more attention to those areas. Foreign investment. The province of BC is the only one, and those two leaders want it brought in across all of Canada for the taxes for foreign investment, for it to go higher. Homeless was another one that they spoke about, and they're wanting the Liberal government to look after the people in our country and making it a percentage of what they give to other countries, rather than just handing them over billions now, not just millions. So those two leaders had quite a bit of similar. The other one for the Green Party, there's a new one. I thought Elizabeth May, when we saw her speak, she was very good.
She was
but-
very good.
Yeah. Anna May Paul. And she was on all harassment of women, elected officials in general, and how social media now, especially in these COVID times, how social media plays a big part on everything in our in our municipalities. And they're saying once you hear something and people are believing everything that they're reading, they're saying to nip it in the bud right away, don't let it fester or grow. Telestat was one of the workshops, and the gentleman there was speaking of how they're spending $6.5 billion, and they're purchased an area in space, and they're going to have 300 satellites, and that's how they're going to bring internet to a lot of areas that there is no internet service. They're claiming it's a better way than fiber optics. So, anyways, I would like to go on more of them too. So if anybody has a chance or to get the code and go on, some of the stuff there is really good, interesting. And then June 7th, the Eastern District meeting. Councillor Sutherland covered a lot of it. We also do have a new Eastern Regional Director. Stan Taves, the Reba of RMF Hanover, is retiring, and the new one is the Reba of Lactabani. He's been acclaimed Lord Schinkel. And I see Springfield is going to be for our next meeting. I see St. Clement's volunteered, but they've already had their name in, so if we can meet together for the next meeting, and otherwise, they've covered a lot of it. So.
Yeah, that, I threw it out there because the way it was on the agenda, I thought they were looking for someone to host it. They could have just very simply put on their confirmation of 2022 meeting place rather than the way they had it on there. So I was a little irritated after I put my hand up and they said, oh, we already have somebody. Well, you could have put a little different, but anyways. Councillor Boulanger.
Since our last planning meeting at the end of the month of May, I wasn't able to attend COW, and I didn't view the FCM presentations, so nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spicer.
Doing the first committee of the whole, which was updates on bylaw enforcement, protective services, and some administrative issues. June the 7th, the AMM June district meeting, covered by 2 previous councillors effectively. Just a couple of things to add. We did have our insurance program report, which was an eye-opener because our liability insurance went up 9.8%, and that was the lowest, which kind of blew me away because it means, like, I think they had 2 examples. One was the East Coast and one was the West Coast, and one went up 46%, and I can't remember what the other one went up, but it was more than that. So that was an eye-opener. There was some discussion on Bill 37 and some of the changes. They're still working on if there's an appeal, there needs to be a reason for the appeal. And they also want to have a limited scope for appeals and some accountability on that. Councillor Sutherland talked about the Rural Economic Development Corporation. It's in Brandon, or will be in Brandon, and it is, they're still in setup. It's not going to be up and running until September. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Vancerolich.
Pretty much the same thing. FCM on the 1st, and yesterday the AMM. See, Joe is back.
Yeah, I picked up on that right away too.
The insurance there, 2 years ago, I think, Colleen and I went to that meeting, and I think that's when they bumped it up to 12.5. It's just going to keep going up. People have flipped out then. And that's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Portis.
June the 1st, committee of a whole meeting, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I have a couple more here. I've got, we had our council meeting on the 25th of May, and on the 26th of May, we had an RCMP meeting. Deepak and I attended that one. It was just for the heads of council and CAOs. It was an invitation from Inspector Duff. And I guess what they're seeing is there are a lot more people out in the area. It was more to do about the service delivery that they're looking at for the upcoming summer season. And I guess what he says is they have seen a lot more traffic in the area and more people are out and about walking, biking, fishing, and just being outdoors. Like he says, there's a lot of people outdoors. Boat traffic in Grand Marais is up, he said. Violence is moving upward while B&Es in residences is down. So they're going to continue working to keep on the repeat offenders and catching them and trying to make some headway with some of these repeat offenders. He then reviewed resources, and I guess there are some senior staff that are leaving and some are moving into the area. So some officers are taking on administrative duties, and he said the summer enforcement program is being carried out. And he said that there will be at least one RCMP in Grand Marais for the summer. So there may be two at different times, but definitely there will be one. So on May the 28th, we had a WMR board meeting, and there was no quorum, so there were no resolutions passed. But we did have a short meeting because it was prior to June the 1st, so there was a reminder for the Plan 2050 comments to be in. And if we needed a few extra days, that would be fine. Oh, save the date, because John Q is planning a fun event for September 9th, restrictions allowing. And I think that was on our meeting agenda last time, maybe. And then there was a presentation by MORR Moore Transportation on transportation corridors within the capital region in Plan 2050. So it was kind of interesting the way they've drawn things out. I don't know, I guess because we're kind of on that outer edge, it doesn't seem like we're going to get lots in the near future, but we'll see. Then there was some discussion on population and employment data, and I know that that's been a contentious issue as far as Plan 50 goes with some of the municipalities, the forecast for population and things like that. The information, though, is based on 2016 data, so we're way behind anyway. So when it's looked at again next year, they'll be able to use the data from this year's census, so maybe those things will change. But right now, there's a lot of municipalities that are not happy, and I will discuss a little bit more when we go in the camera. Need to work with WMR on next steps to move the process forward, need to evaluate results and draw conclusions to move the plan forward. So there's kind of some next steps, but we didn't really come to any conclusion. Committee of the whole, we were all here for that other than Councilor Boulanger, and if there's anything that you didn't catch up with, Deepak, I'm sure can catch up on any of the information. June 3rd, the Selkirk District Community Foundation Nominating Committee meeting was held. It was held virtually, and Bev Clegg reviewed what's coming up, including the new video and the new webpage that's being worked on. And they're working on IT development and succession planning. As Bev says, I'm not going to be here forever, so they want to try and do some succession planning sooner rather than later, because I think all three of the gals that work in that office, not that they're close to retirement, but they could all go very close together. Like, you know, they're of that area where they could go a little quite soon after one another. The vital signs, the housing project will hopefully start again in the fall. And then the chair reviewed all the highlights. There's 84 projects that have been funded through the corporation or through the Community Foundation, and they're planning for their 25th anniversary, so that hopefully they'll be able to have an in-person event rather than a virtual event. And yesterday, the June district meeting, and I have pretty much everything the same as everybody else. The one thing I will mention is anybody that was receiving a service pin from AMM, the names were all on the screen, and I'm imagining that the pins will be mailed to the municipalities, and those will be given out by the RMs. Much like, I think there was one year where Ken and Ray couldn't come, so I just gave them their pins here at the office during the council meeting. And that's all I have. So I'm going to turn it over to our administrator, Deepak, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Many of the same meetings. First was the meeting with the RCMP on the policing in the community areas between St. Andrews, Selkirk, East Selkirk, St. Clements, as well as East St. Paul and West St. Paul. The other meetings were, had a meeting with Scatliff Miller Murray, as well as KGS and the Guns Creek diversion, dealing with those issues, as well as a meeting with the province on the working group for Bill 37. Then there was the meeting with council on the committee of the whole, and another meeting was related with Efficiency Manitoba for buildings. And Efficiency Manitoba is the new Power Smart program, so they discussed several different items. I did discuss a part of that they are looking at creating a community energy efficiency advocate, and if we are able to sign up for that, that could be up to $40,000 for the next 2 years of funding to support the salary. Right now, there's only one advocate so far that's been identified in the city of Selkirk. An article was written about it at the in the Selkirk Record just recently. They did talk about looking at dealing with energy efficiency related with getting grants and working with replacing lights and all those other programs that they continue to maintain, as well as looking at small municipal buildings, 15,000 square feet or smaller. And so they could look at energy upgrades and eco-fit associated with it. So we'll look at those kinds of grants, see if there's any advantage of those. They talked a lot about what are some of the opportunities that they can come in and work with the municipalities on doing this. They would like to be part of any building projects right from the beginning, so that you can meet some of the LEED standards, but that's difficult to get involved in that because that just adds to sometimes more costs and expenses at the beginning. The other meetings were, we had the district meeting yesterday, as well as I've had a meeting with also our admin on taking a look at our charges related with connection fees and how we can move forward on those. We can bring something forward to council on. And we also did a project review of our major projects, and what we're developing is a process now to sort of track
Don't
those
say,
projects.
hello, my friends and relatives, for those of you that don't know me.
And so the other is we are working, I also had some meetings with looking at affordable housing in both Grand Marais and in East Selkirk. There's two different components that are looking at different options for us. There's an opportunity. What we'd like to have is a discussion on affordable housing and what it means, because there are many different types of affordable housings, anywhere from age in place to seniors housing to
Low income.
geared for rent geared income, low income, as well as then attainable housing and then low income housing. So what do we what do we mean when we talk about affordable housing, and especially for our economic development officer to make sure that they're approaching the appropriate corporations. Because many of these, such as the rent geared towards income type of housing, there's usually a requirement to have some level of management, of the property management of that. And usually not-for-profits are doing that, but that can be a cost to an RM because now you're supporting those not-for-profits. And so those are some of the things that we need to talk about as we move forward. The other proponent, of course, they're looking at doing something, but they also work with some of the surrounding municipalities. That one is looking at bringing possibly not only affordable housing, but new type of housing with also education. And they want to work also with the indigenous groups as well as some of the surrounding municipalities. And their intent would be to bring funding from the other levels of government. And the only contribution the RMs or the communities would be is maybe land, maybe some in-kind type of support, because it would be supported for that. So I'm still learning a lot more about that. This is quite a large project because they're expanding nationally and internationally as their plan. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Heather, do you have anything that you would like to share with us today?
I'm good.
Okay. So with that, we do have some in-camera items, so I'm going to ask for a resolution to go in camera. If you could bring that forward, please, Deepak.
Madam Mayor, just looking it up. Resolved, council recess the regular meeting and go into in-camera to discuss legal and personnel issues, and further be it resolved that all matters discussed are to remain confidential as per section 83(1)(d) of the Municipal Act.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Vazerovich, Councillor Hoga seconds. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And I'm going to get a coffee before we start. And